All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome back to True Crime Loser. I hope you're doing well. So we're just going to get right into this one. I got a crazy one to talk about today. So a little over a month ago, on February 15th, the LAPD get a call around 1 in the morning saying, I just heard a blood-curdling scream. I think it was my roommate. I ditched to the neighbors. I think she was assaulted. The LAPD rush over and they find Amy Harwick fatally injured on the sidewalk in front of her third-story balcony. And Amy Harwick is described as a prominent sex and marriage therapist. She wrote books. She was on shows. If like the news needed an opinion of a therapist, she made appearances. She was really doing well for herself. She had just bought a house in LA, which is pretty cool. And I don't think it took too much police work to find the main suspect. It was one of those where she had told her friends, listen, if something happens to me, it's this guy named Gareth Pursehouse. Everybody knew they had dated. She had had restraining orders against him in 2011 and 2012. TMZ said that they expired 2 weeks before she was killed. They're the only ones saying that. I'm not sure if it's true. And so Gareth, who is this Gareth Pursehouse guy? She had restraining orders against him. She was scared of him. 2 months ago in January, so a month before it happened, they ran into each other at an event where Gareth was taking photographs and kind of a red carpet looking type thing. They ran into each other. I think Gareth tried to be like, hey, can we just talk? It's been years. Can we talk? They hadn't seen each other. There had been protection orders and all this stuff in 2011, 2012, hadn't seen each other. And then in January of 2020, they run into each other at this event. And it did not go well for Gareth. I don't think really much goes well for Gareth. And he bombed the interaction between them. They hadn't seen each other in years. This was the big moment to, just say, hey, Amy, I'm going to give you your space. We're both at this party. We didn't plan for it, but I'll leave you alone. Hope all is well. And he completely bombed, and they said tried to talk to her. She was like, Gareth, go away. Had a meltdown, was pathetic. And also, and what's going to be kind of the meat of this video is also less than a month before it happened, Gareth tried stand-up comedy on a wildly popular podcast / live show in LA called Kill Tony. And what Kill Tony is the personality and the brains behind it is this comedian named Tony Hinchcliffe and Brian Redban, who got his start. Anyone that knows the Joe Rogan podcast, he was the first, I think, producer of the Joe Rogan podcast. So on a table, like for a Kill Tony episode, there's a panel table with Brian Redban, who's doing the knobs for the live podcast, and also he has some sound effects to press, when a joke bombs or when the time's running out, he gives them a little sound effect. And then in the middle is Tony Hinchcliffe, the personality, it's his show, it's Kill Tony. He sits in the middle, he's got a microphone, he announces, and then they have a guest comedian, like a popular professional comedian in the other seat. So Tony and Redban come out and they introduce the show, and then a band comes out, kind of like a Tonight Show style band. So when they say this next comedian is Gareth Pursehouse, everybody, the band can come in, and so the episode, Redban and Tony come out, they introduce the guest comedian come out, they do a little intro with everybody, the crowd is full, they film it at the Comedy Store. And then how it works is they allow people to sign up to do comedy at the show. I think they were saying around 100 to 75 to 100 people sign up for a spot to do comedy on the show, ranging from people that have never done comedy before to people that are years and years in and just have never gotten a little pop that they needed. And why it's desirable for young and old and everybody in between to get on this show is because it's a hit show. There's a lot of comedians there. Maybe there's agents there. Who knows? But probably for someone like Gareth, he wants to be a comedian. And so if I think if you show up to Kill Tony week after week, as long as you're nice to people, you put your name in the hat, eventually you'll get a shot. And for someone like Gareth, who's barely ever done it, probably the most he could get out of it, if he had a great set, went up there and killed, probably the most he could get out of it is just, other comedians might say, hey, man, that was pretty good. How long you been doing it? Oh, really? That's it? Well, I run a show at the Whiskey Apple. You come on, the first Tuesday. Come on, you can do 5 minutes. So it could get like the ball rolling. You could make some friends. So it's a very desirable, like I said, 100 people show up to try to get on the show. And the reason that the show can put up beginner comedians and it still be good is because you got the professional comedians at the table with microphones holding down the ship. So if a hack like Gareth comes up and just blows it, they're right there to just catch it, and they can either make fun of him or they can just ask him, wow, that was really horrible, what happened, type of thing. And so if you sign up and you get picked to go on the show as a comedian, you get 1 minute, which is a great amount because it's enough time to get up there and try a joke or two or an idea, but it's short enough that it can go bad in a minute, but it can't really go that bad, right? It's right when it's about to just go really off the rails, it's going to be over, and then Tony's going to hop in. So they get a minute to try comedy, and then Tony and the guest comedian interviews them for maybe like 5 to 10 minutes after their 1 minute. So if the person kills, the interview is like, wow, that was pretty good, something like that. Or if, like in Gareth's situation, if it just goes unbelievably bad, then they talk about that. So really, either way, it's a win-win for the show. It's entertaining. Like I said, it's wildly popular. If you live in a major city, it's a touring show. There's a good chance they're coming to your city, so go check one out. So we're going to go through Gareth's comedy set that he did on Kill Tony not even a month before this happened. He was on stage, and the Kill Tony people went back through and found it and then posted it on YouTube. So I'll post it in the description too if you want to just watch the whole set. But first, let me give you my opinion on Gareth. And I don't know for sure, like I said, this is my opinion, and I got this I was trying to just find everything left that he posted on the internet yesterday, trying to just figure out who is this Gareth Pursehouse. And here's my opinion. He's one of these guys in LA. He's 6'4", 230, built, good looking, and he's one of these guys, and there's a lot in LA and in New York, but I think probably more in LA, where they look like showbiz, In his head, I think he's like, I'm good looking, I'm a big dude, I kind of look like a movie star. I am going to be one. And then they try acting and nothing good happens, and they end up, tanking every audition that they go to, or they end up saying, getting conned into paying for acting classes at some conservatory where they're like, you pay us $14,000 and then we'll get you an audition with a casting agent or something. And I'm sure it just went horrible. And then for some reason, these type of people that they're just like, all right, well, I'm a 9 or a 10 in the looks department but a big old 0 in the talent department when it comes to acting. And so the only logical step is I probably should be a comedian. Since I can't act and that's going horrible, then I must be funny enough to be a professional comedian. And I have no idea where that logic comes from. But these towns are chocked full of them. I also get the feeling, too, because in the interview after he blows his comedy set, he says that he has tried to be an inventor, and he's a photographer and this whole thing. But he's like one of these people that they'll hand you their card in show business, and it'll be like Gareth Pursehouse, director, writer, dancer, visionary, and it's just like a million things, wizard, model, and you're like, all right, you're not good at any of these, are you? If someone hands you a business card and they have 17 different things that they're good at, they probably are just a software engineer, just like Gareth is, and aren't a visionary. Okay, so let's go back just a little bit. They get there, the LAPD get there at 1:15 a.m. She's on the sidewalk. They rush her to the hospital. Quickly becomes morning on that Saturday, and Gareth is arrested at 4:30 p.m. And he's a little bit active on Twitter before he's arrested at 4:30. And so this was his big, in the time that she was thrown off the balcony, in the time that he was arrested, this was his big Twitter activity. It didn't say which comedian, and this also shows you that he's commenting on comedians' Twitter posts, so he's really thinking of himself like, I'm going to be a stand-up comedian, I think. And so some comedian had tweeted, hey, my recent comedy special that I posted on YouTube got 400,000 views, and he replied to that. This is Gareth's reply. I've been special since I was 5, no views. And so you could see the extent of his joke writing for this one was he just like, that person used the word special, I'm going to use the same word. That's good, right? It's funny. Comedy. Okay, so that was a reply, and then this was just a tweet that he sent out. So this is hours before he's arrested for murder and first-degree burglary. He tweets out, you can't get fit without that new gym clothing, but they won't give you that gear until you're fit. So, tough titties, bucko. Whew. Again, just a really horrible, whatever that is, it's horrible. So, tough titties, bucko. Also, 9 months ago, he posted a video where it kind of looked like he was just trying to show off that he can act or something, where he's holding the camera, like a selfie type thing, and he's doing all these like over-exaggerated smiles. And it's pretty, never watched Game of Thrones, but he's talking about how, I guess in Game of Thrones, a brother has to push the brother out the window, and he's like talking all scary and ominous, but it's also like, hey, look, I'm acting. And he's like, I know it's evil, but I do feel for the brother. And he does this like long, evil smile. So he says he felt for the brother that had to push his other brother. So just in context, pretty horrifying. Anything else before I get into the set? Okay, so like I said, less than a month before he throws this woman off the balcony, he tried stand-up, and this is his set on Kill Tony. Okay, so they announce him up. Tony says, hey, everybody, this next comedian is Gareth. And the band comes in. They play Dream, 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 Dream. And it's funny, the first thing Gareth does is walk the wrong direction to get up on stage, because you don't see him yet, but you see Tony being like, no, Gareth, no, go the other way, Gareth, no, all right, go, and the band, Dream, and walking the wrong way or just being like, oh, it's my first time on this show, that happens all the time, but just knowing how unbelievably horrible the whole set went, there's something funny about in the beginning, that even the beginning he walked, everything about the set, he just did the exact wrong thing. Gareth has opposite instincts when it comes to comedy. everything that he did naturally was the total opposite of someone that's naturally funny or that has a little knack to do it. And so first things first, he just walks totally, Gareth, over here. Nope, wrong way, Gareth. And so he gets up on stage, and this is his first attempt. He says, "Great to be here in all the best parts of entertainment. We've got most of a band," which doesn't, so his first attempt at humor is just to take a shot at the band, which is probably the least likable thing you could ever do. And also, it doesn't, again, just doesn't make sense. There's a drummer with a full drum set, a guitar player, and 2 horn players. So saying we have almost a band, I mean, we got a band. Maybe if there was 1 horn player or something, that would have gotten a little chuckle, like, well, we almost got a band, but, it's a show at a comedy club. The fact we got even any of a band is cool, so I don't know. I don't get taking the shot at the band early on. But he goes, great to be here in all the best parts of entertainment. We've got most of a band, and the band kind of looks at each other like, what? We've got morning radio sound effects, and he gestures at Brian Redban, who is producing the show, just sitting there. He doesn't even have a microphone. He's sitting there just working, making the show possible. We have morning show sound effects. And then this is just where this first bit turns into a horrific mess of a joke. So we have morning show sound effects. So he rips the band, he rips the producer, and then he points at Tony, the whole personality of the show. And he says, sometimes a full band, when a toy kazoo comes from the ground, raises from the grave, takes over Tony, and starts singing. It's a wonderful time. All right, so that's word for word. And then he goes, and then when it just obviously doesn't get a laugh because it's nothing. It's not, there's nothing there that's even remotely funny. And then he goes, and the crowd is completely silent. It gets 0, and then the crowd then laugh. The worst laugh you can get in comedy is when you hit the big punchline and go, "Yeah, and she's my mother-in-law," and then it gets nothing, and then the crowd laughs after a second at the fact that it got nothing. So he gets like it bombs, and then they laugh at that it bombed. And so now the confidence that he had at the beginning is shook a little bit. He goes, "Oh, okay." And then he goes directly into joke 2, which is, over the summer, Trump yanked out all the troops out of Syria. Right then, ISIS got loose. They were knocking on doors, running away or something like that. I really don't know how it works. And I thought he should have asked Tony. So now he goes back. Everybody here, you got to remember, is fans of Tony. They're coming to his show. So Tony points out when he's done bombing and they go into the interview section, Tony points out, so you went with the strategy of roasting the people that everyone here are huge fans of. Interesting strategy. No one knows you. You sign up to have a shot, to come up here. You have 60 seconds. You have come up here, put it out there, try your jokes, try to make a friend in the comedy industry. And you pick to just these incoherent roast jokes. He's like, interesting strategy type of thing. All right, so let me start over. So this is joke 2. Over the summer, Trump yanked out all the troops out of Syria. This one to me, sorry to keep stopping, but this one to me is like some Trump joke that he had, and then it's like he's like, okay, you know what, I'm just gonna jam in a roast of Tony at the very end. So he goes, over the summer, Trump yanked out all the troops out of Syria. Right then, ISIS got loose. They were knocking on doors, running away or something like that. I don't really know how it works. And I thought he should have asked Tony about his bad idea because he has broke the bank relying on the pullout method. Quickest coming comedian in comedy. Whew, a lot of words. They say a joke when it doesn't have any extra word. When it's a tight joke, they say that it's that joke doesn't have any fat on it. These jokes are morbidly obese. If these jokes were a person, they'd be on one of those shows where they meet with a doctor and the doctor's like, you need to lose 900 pounds or you're going to die. And with this one too, all right, so he comes out, and like I said, there's the table of the guest comedian, Tony in the middle, and then Red Band, the producer. And so they're back kind of behind the comedian to the left. And so Gareth came out, and he set his joke book, and he would later say in the interview, he goes, yeah, I write, talking about jokes, he goes, I write literally constantly, but I just don't memorize, saying like, that's why this set went so bad, and I did the roast stuff instead of just doing my material. And but what's so funny is, so he comes out and he sets his joke book on the table with the three comedians, but it's 5 feet back, and so he has to walk back, turn from the crowd, and look at a joke, and then he'll walk back. And you can tell he really just wants approval from the comedians, and specifically Tony, and which is weird because he's doing these horrific roast jokes to Tony. But for this one, so he's starting off with his, like, you know, Trump pulled out the troops in Syria and they started knocking on doors and something like that. I don't really know how it works. And then instead of just directing the joke out to the crowd the whole time, when he starts to get to the Tony part where he goes, which is maybe one of the worst endings to a joke I've ever heard, he goes, I thought he should have asked Tony about his bad idea because he has broke the bank relying on the pullout method. Quickest coming comedian in comedy. But when he starts talking about Tony, you know, the crowd's this way. As the comedian, you know, you're pointing all the energy towards the crowd, and the panel of comics are back here. You know, during the interview, you got to turn around and talk to them. But for the show, the comedians are going this way. But I think he feels awkward that he's now roasting Tony a second time. So when he gets to the part where he's like, I thought that Trump should have asked Tony about the bad idea, he turns around and he's just making this sort of weird eye contact with Tony, and Tony's sitting there kind of just looking at him. And so during the part where he goes, because he has, talking about Tony, he has broke the bank relying on the pullout method, and by this point he's making direct eye contact with Tony, and he goes, while making eye contact, quickest coming comedian in comedy. And so now the bit about how the band is not a full band, and how, you know, the producer that is known for producing one of the most popular podcasts of all time, and now this one and others, trying to roast him for having morning radio sounds, and then trying to roast the personality of the show that has a wildly popular show, and now he's looking straight in his eye and saying, quick. He also ended that joke with a question, quickest coming comedian in comedy. And again, it just gets a total and complete silence. And the comedians are, Tony just kind of is like, what, dude? All right, and then so he goes into joke 3. Now, by this point, the crowd hates him. You can feel it. Everything that he is, like I said, every instinct that he has about likability and material and performance, all of those attributes, if it was like a video game and you're building a comedian, his likability is a 0. His writing is a 0. His stage presence is a 0. All right, so here's joke 3. So picture that joke where he's staring away from the crowd, looking at the producer of the show, going, quickest coming comedian in comedy. Everyone's like, what? Okay, then he turns around and goes, anyways, I have bad news for the entertainers over there, which gets a huge laugh because there's something funny. Obviously, Gareth in his head, while he's preparing this set of like, okay, I'm going to go rip on the band, and then I'm going to roast the roasters. Before they can roast me, I'm going to roast them. That was his big idea. And in his head, this whole part was going to be killing. So he thought by the time he gets to the third joke where he's like, yeah, I got some bad news for the entertainers over here, pointing at probably the people waiting to go on. He thought he was going to be strutting around up there like Chris Rock, like, I got bad news for you over here. But instead, he's just this sweaty, shaking, unconfident, bombing mass of flesh and bones. And so to unconfidently, after the whole shit is going totally wrong, to say, couldn't be worse news for Gareth in this set. And so for him to say, yeah, anyways, I got bad news for the entertainers over there, that gets a laugh because everyone's like, it couldn't be worse for going for you right now. Okay, so here's the third joke. He says I got bad news for the entertainers over here. The best days of your careers will be the days after you die. Paintings skyrocket in price. Redbox starts holding some movie from 1962. But what about the porn talent? What happens to them? Is it just Red Band? Again, the wildly successful producer that's sitting there just running the knobs for the show that's giving you a chance. Is it just Red Band at home singing? And then he goes onto his knees and does a big over-the-top masturbation act out. And so he goes, is it just Red Band? Drops to his knees, starts pantomiming, he's jerking off. Is it just Red Band at home singing? She was so unappreciated in her time. And so you gotta picture, he ends one of the worst sets of all time, probably, as far as one that people are actually gonna see. It's almost as bad as Kramer's set, and Gareth didn't say the N-word. Kramer like yelled the N-word 45 times, and Gareth's set is just barely better. And so Gareth, the one thing I do give Gareth credit for is just, even though everybody in the room hated him, every attempt at a laugh that he got was just a total fail, he still ended with the big over-the-top jerk-off act out. Because if he would, most people would have been like, all right, this crowd hates me, they hate my material, it's not going to hurt the set at all if I just cut the giant act out where I go on my knees and jerk off right at the end of the set. So I'm just not going to do it. But Gareth's like, you know what? Because act outs are great. Say again, so in his head he thought that he was just going to be murdering, and then when he drops to his knees and does the big act out, he thought everyone was going to be howling. But the thing about act outs is, if the joke is bombing and all the jokes before it bombed and the crowd hates you, it's really a bummer to do the act out. So say I was doing a joke and then, it accumulates to me being like, and then I started jump roping, and I do this big where I'm fake jump roping is the act out. If the joke is killing, and then when I start doing the jump out, it brings the laughter up more and everybody loves it, it's great. But if the joke's bombing and I get to that part and I go, and then I just started jump roping, and the crowd's like, what? And then knowing that they hate you and it wasn't funny, to just sit there and do the act out is a horrible feeling. But he went for it, and then that's the end. So they're like, all right, Gareth, there you go. And it ends. So then it goes into, they're like, okay, let's talk about that, Gareth. And like I said, the first thing Tony said is like, okay, so you decided to roast the people that everyone came to see. That was kind of an interesting strategy. And Gareth is like, yeah, I wasn't going to do it at first, but I was just going to do normal jokes, but they started to easily twist into roast jokes, and you guys roast people, so I figured I would just, and they're like, well, that didn't work, Gareth. And Gareth is up there kind of laughing, and they're like, what do you want to do, Gareth? Or like, what do you do for fun? And Garrett's like, I want to be an inventor, and I want to, and he goes, I'm working on a water conservation project. He like doesn't know which word he wants to end. He's like, I'm working on a water conservation project. And I think it was Tony, it cracked me up. He goes, you're not going to be that dude. And so, like I said, he's one of these people. He's like, I want to be an inventor and a comedian. And I'm a writer, and I'm definitely an actor and a director. And they ask him, do you have a girlfriend? And he goes, no, but I'm here with a really hot date. And, and they joke like, well, this was not the night to bring a date. Why would you bring a date not knowing if you know how to do comedy to a comedy show, especially one where it's known for kind of, if you blow it, they roast you a little bit. I can't imagine what his date was thinking in the back of the room, because, he's this 6'4", 230, good-looking guy who's probably saying, hey, baby, I'm an inventor. I'm working on a what? Can't you just see Gareth at some L.A. party in the backyard? There's a pool and a view of the city, and he's just, wearing cool clothes, just being like, yeah, I'm an inventor. I'm working on a water conservation project. And just, some idiot that he's talking to was like, wow, that's really cool. That's awesome. And, comes out there like, yeah, you're a handsome guy. And he goes, yeah, I've been Superman for Halloween a few times. And they're like, yep, that makes sense. And then I'm really happy that he did that. So Tony was like, all right, well, your roast jokes went unimaginably horrible, something like that. But, give us one of your normal jokes. Like, what's one if you decided not to roast us? And it's funny. So now he's looking at his joke book, like, frantically. He's like, okay, I got another shot. And while he's looking, he goes, okay, I don't have everything. Like flipping through the page, and they're like, come on, you have a joke. What's your best joke? And okay, so here's joke number 4. They give him another shot. That's how nice they are. They're like, okay, your roasting was bad, but hit us with a joke. And so he said, this is the 4th one. So he says, I had one today where I was talking to an ex from a long time ago. She told me that when we first met, she thought my personality meant I have a small dick, and I talked to another ex, and she told me the same thing. And I just want to make it perfectly clear that my dick size is private. That's the joke. Yeah, and again, the comedians are like, yeah, that's bad, man. Whew. And then he says, Gareth goes, I write literally constantly, but I don't memorize. And then he sneaks one more joke in the very end, the 5th and final joke. He says, the first kid, they give him another shot. He says, the first kid to use the phrase, way to go, Einstein, was a bully on the playground. Crickets. And they go, what? Why? And he goes, a bully on the playground in 1880. And everyone's just like, oh, all right, well, yeah. It's not funny, but at least that makes it coherent. And then they're like, all right, well, thanks, Gareth. That'll do it for Gareth. Gareth, everybody. And the band comes back in. And Gareth walks off stage. And less than a month later, he's facing the death penalty. It's crazy. We're going to keep following it. But I guess it's just like, in his words, tough titties, bucko type of thing. Oh, yeah. He was arrested. This is the last thing I'm going to do. He was arrested, and then $2 million bonded out with $200,000. And then they arrested him like a day or two later. at a restaurant right across the street from the airport. So I think they thought he was going to bounce out of there. And now he's being held with no bond. So I think people are happy about that. Anyway, we'll follow it. I hope you're having a good quarantine. I'll talk to you soon. Why? Stavin' why? Last question.